They say the ocean is the last frontier on Earth. We have mapped the surface of Mars more accurately than we have mapped the floor of our own Pacific Ocean. People think that's just a lack of funding or maybe a lack of technology. I am here to tell you, that is a lie. We haven't mapped it because we are not allowed to. My name is Elias. I'm a retired Master Chief sonar technician for the United States Navy. For 30 years, I listened to the ocean. I know the sound of a humpback whale calling to its calf across 500 miles of water. I know the tectonic grinding of the continental plates. I know the mechanical hum of a Russian Akula-class submarine. But what I heard in the winter of 1998 did not belong to any of those categories. I'm an old man now. My security clearance has long since expired, or maybe the people who enforced it are all dead. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you understand that while we look at the stars, wondering if we are alone, the answer has been right beneath us the whole time, in the cold, crushing dark. It started in San Diego, the naval base Coronado. I was supposed to be on shore leave. I had just returned from a 6-month deployment in the Persian Gulf, and I was looking forward to sleeping in a bed that didn't sway. But 3 days after I docked, I received orders, not through the usual chain of command, but a hand-delivered envelope. I was told to report to a hangar on the far side of the North Island airfield at 0300 hours. No uniform, civilian clothes, no bags. When I arrived, the fog was rolling in off the bay, thick and heavy. It muffled the sound of the city, making the world feel small and gray. Inside the hangar, there were no jets, just a black sedan and 2 men in suits who looked like they hadn't slept in a week. They didn't tell me where I was going. They simply asked me one question. "Master Chief, how good are you at distinguishing biological sounds from mechanical ones?" I told them I was the best. They nodded, opened the car door, and drove me to a private pier. Waiting there was not a ship, but a specialized submersible. It was the DSV-3, or something that looked like it, a deep submergence vehicle, painted matte black to disappear in the water. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a standard patrol. There were 4 of us going down, myself, Dr. Aris Thorne, a geologist from Stanford, a quiet woman named Sarah who never stated her rank but carried herself like CIA, and the pilot. The hatch sealed with a heavy metallic thud that echoed in my chest. That sound, the finality of the airlock closing, is something you never get used to. It's the sound of leaving the world of men behind. As we began our descent, the pilot killed the external lights to save power. We sank into the abyss in total darkness. For the first 1,000 feet, you could still see the faint blue glow of the surface above, fading like a dying memory. Then, the twilight zone, and finally, the midnight zone. The only sound was the rhythmic hum of the oxygen scrubbers and the occasional creak of the titanium hull adjusting to the immense pressure. 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet. The pressure outside was now over 1,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush a car into a soda can. Dr. Thorne was sweating, despite the chill in the cabin. He kept checking his watch. "We are approaching the shelf," he whispered. "The acoustics here are unique." I looked out the thick quartz porthole. There was nothing but absolute, terrifying blackness, the kind of blackness that feels heavy on your eyes. And then I saw it. Not a fish, not a bioluminescent jelly, but a light, a steady amber light far below us. It wasn't moving, it was waiting. "Welcome to Station Orion," the pilot said, his voice devoid of emotion. As we got closer, the amber light revealed itself. It wasn't just a light, it was a facility. Imagine a cluster of hexagonal domes anchored to the side of a massive underwater canyon wall. It looked like a honeycomb made of glass and reinforced steel, clinging to the edge of an abyss that went down even deeper into the Mariana Trench's unknown cousins closer to California. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. It glowed with a soft, artificial hum that I could feel in my teeth. We docked at the upper hangar. The water drained away with a roar, and the hiss of equalization filled the cabin. When we stepped out, the air smelled sterile, recycled, metallic. We were greeted by a man in a white Navy dress uniform, but he wore no name tag. He looked at me with eyes that were too intense, too wide. "Master Chief," he said, "we have been waiting for your ears. The sensors are picking up a pattern, and it's getting louder." He led us through a long glass tunnel connecting the hangar to the main command center. As I walked, I looked up. Above the glass, thousands of feet of water pressed down on us. And then for a split second, I saw a shadow move above the glass. It was massive, sleek, and it moved faster than anything physics should allow underwater. I stopped. "Did you see that?" I asked. The officer didn't even look up. "We don't look up, Elias. We only look down. Come, your shift starts in 10 minutes. They brought me to the sonar room. It was the heart of the station. Walls of monitors, waterfalls of digital data cascading down screens, and the centerpiece, a hydrophone array that they claimed was sensitive enough to hear a shrimp snap its claws 5 miles away. My predecessor, a man named Henderson, was packing his things. He looked shaken. His hands were trembling as he put a photo of his family into a box. "You're the new ears?" he asked, not looking at me. "Yes," I said. "What's the situation?" Henderson stopped. He leaned in close, his voice a ragged whisper. "Don't listen to the static for too long," he said. "The static, it has a rhythm. If you focus on it, it starts to make sense. Don't let it make sense." Before I could ask him what he meant, security escorted him out. I sat down in the chair. It was still warm. I put on the heavy, noise-canceling headphones. The world instantly went silent. I reached out and flipped the switch to activate the external hydrophones. At first, just the ocean floor noise, the low rumble of currents, the distant shifting of sand. And then I heard it. It was faint, extremely low frequency, below the range of human hearing, but pitched up by the computer so I could process it. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It wasn't mechanical. A propeller has a cavitation rhythm. A submarine has a reactor pump whine. This was organic, but it was metallic too, like a heart beating inside a chest made of iron. I adjusted the frequency, trying to clean up the signal. The moment I isolated the sound, a chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold air of the station. The sound wasn't coming from the ocean floor. It was coming from inside the canyon wall we were attached to. Something was in the rock, and it was waking up.
Time doesn't exist at 4,000 feet. There's no sun, no moon, no changing of the tides that you can feel. There's only the shift rotation, 0800 to 2000, and 2000 to 0800. I was assigned the night shift, or what they called night. My first shift stretched out like a rubber band. I sat in that ergonomic leather chair, the leather cracked from years of use by other men, staring at the green waterfall of the sonar display. The sound I had heard earlier, that rhythmic thrumming from the canyon wall, was still there, but it was intermittent now, like a beast breathing in its sleep. To keep myself alert, I focused on the background noise of the ocean. It's a trick old sonar techs use. You don't listen to the loud sounds, you listen to the silence between them. Outside the station, the ocean was alive. I heard the clicking of sperm whales hunting giant squid miles above us. I heard the groaning of the station's thermal regulators fighting against the freezing water. But every hour, on the hour, I had to log the anomaly. Target bearing 270, Signal strength, minimal. Pattern, biological rhythmic. I wrote it down in the logbook, not a computer file, a physical paper logbook. That was the first red flag I missed. In a station worth billions of dollars, full of supercomputers, they wanted the most important data written in ink on paper. Why? Because digital data can be transmitted. Paper stays here. Around 2:00, I took my break. I walked down the silent corridor to the mess hall. The floor grates clanked softly under my boots. The air was cold. It always smelled of ozone and salt. The mess hall was empty, except for Dr. Thorne, the geologist I had arrived with. He was sitting at a metal table staring into a cup of tea that had gone cold. He looked pale. I poured myself some coffee. It was thick, bitter navy mud, the kind that keeps your eyes open even when your brain wants to shut down. I sat across from him. "You haven't slept," I said. Thorne looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. "The rock samples," he whispered. "I analyzed the core samples they took from the canyon wall. And it's basalt, volcanic rock, standard for the Pacific floor, but the isotope decay is wrong. The rock on the surface of the wall is 3 million years old, but 2 inches deeper, it's fresh." I took a sip of coffee. "Fresh? You mean like a recent eruption?" He shook his head slowly. "No, Elias, not formed by heat. It's formed by growth. The rock isn't geological. It's a shell, like a scab growing over a wound." He leaned in, his voice dropping so low I could barely hear him over the hum of the ventilation. "We aren't attached to a cliff," he said. "We are attached to a door." Before I could ask him what he meant, the ship's intercom crackled. "Master Chief Elias, report to sonar immediately. We have a spike." I ran back to the sonar room. My heart was hammering against my ribs. When I burst through the door, the room was bathed in red emergency lighting. The other technician, a young kid named Miller, was ripping his headphones off, clutching his ears. "It screamed," Miller yelled. "It just screamed at me." I pushed him aside and grabbed the headset. I didn't put them fully on. I'm not stupid. I held one cup to my ear. The silence was gone. The rhythmic thrumming was gone. Replacing it was a sound I will never forget as long as I live. It sounded like grinding metal, but layered with voices. Not human voices. It sounded like a choir singing underwater, distorted by pressure and distance. "Hoo! Click, click, click! Grrr!" I looked at the frequency analyzer. The sound was coming from everywhere. It wasn't just the wall anymore. It was surrounding the station. "Active ping," I shouted to Miller. "Give me a single ping. I need to see what's out there." "We're under orders not to use active sonar," Miller panicked. "They attract them." I froze. "Attracts who, Miller?" He didn't answer. He just pointed at the main screen. The passive sonar was painting a picture. We weren't alone in the water. Surrounding Station Orion, circling us like wolves around a campfire, were 5 distinct contacts. They were fast, moving at 60 knots. No propeller noise, no engine hum, just pure displacement of water. They were circling us, and they were getting tighter.
I switched the feed to the external cameras. Station Orion had floodlights, heavy-duty halogens capable of cutting through 50 feet of murk. "Turn on the northeast quadrant lights," I ordered. Miller hesitated, his hand hovering over the switch. "They don't like the light, Chief." "Do it!" He flipped the switch. On the monitor, the blackness of the ocean was suddenly pierced by blinding white beams. The water was full of marine snow, organic debris drifting down like snowflakes. For a moment, there was nothing, just the empty, cold water. Then, something glided past camera 3. It wasn't a submarine. It wasn't a machine. It looked like a disc, maybe 30 feet in diameter, made of a material that shimmered like oil on water. It didn't have windows. It didn't have rivets. It was seamless. As it passed the light, the disc tilted. and for a second I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. The disc wasn't solid. The surface of it was rippling, changing texture to match the water behind it. It was camouflaging itself in real time. But the most terrifying part? It stopped, right in front of the camera. And then a beam of light shot out from the object, a blue laser scanning the camera lens. The screen static hissed, and the image went black. "Camera 3 is down," whispered Miller. Then camera 4 went black, then camera 5. They were blinding us, one by one. We sat in the dark sonar room, illuminated only by the dying screens. The external cameras were all dead. We were blind, but we weren't deaf. I put the headphones back on. The singing had stopped. The grinding had stopped. There was only silence, heavy, oppressive silence. And then a sound that came not from the headphones, but from the room itself. Clang! It came from the hall, somewhere above us. Clang! Someone or something was knocking on the outside of the station. Miller looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "They want to come in," he whispered. I stood up and walked to the heavy blast door that separated us from the docking bay. I locked it. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They don't want to come in, Miller." I looked at the sonar screen, where the 5 contacts were now stationary, hovering directly attached to our hull. They want us to come out.
The knocking stopped as abruptly as it began. One moment, the heavy clang was reverberating through the steel bones of the station. The next, nothing. Just the low, constant drone of the ventilation fans. Miller and I stood there in the sonar room for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only minutes. We were waiting for the hull to buckle, waiting for the ocean to come rushing in and crush us instantly. But the water didn't come. Instead, the red alert light on the console finally stopped flashing and settled into a steady, ominous burn. "Why did they stop?" Miller whispered. He was wiping his palms on his pants over and over again. I pulled the headphones off my neck. "Because they realized we aren't opening the door." "So they left?" I looked at the black screens where the cameras used to be. "No, Miller, nothing leaves down here. They just changed tactics." I walked over to the intercom and keyed the bridge. "Captain, this is sonar. The contacts have gone silent on passive. We are blind and deaf." There was a long pause. Then Captain Vance's voice came through. It sounded tired, older than he was. "Understood, Master Chief. Maintain watch. And Elias, if you hear them start singing again, don't listen. That's an order." My shift ended at 0800, but nobody slept. The barracks were silent, but every bunk was filled with men staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaking of the station. I couldn't stay in my bunk. I needed to move. I wandered down to Deck C, the engineering level. This deck was closest to the canyon wall, the door Dr. Thorne had talked about. The air here was always heavier, hotter. The smell of grease and hot metal was overpowering. I found a maintenance crew clustered around a junction box near the firewall. Dr. Thorne was there too, crouching on the floor. Water was dripping from a seam in the ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. It was forming a small puddle on the grating. "Is it a breach?" I asked, stepping closer. The lead engineer, a burly woman named Rodriguez, shook her head. "No, the structural integrity sensors are green. There's no hull breach, no pressure drop." "Then where's the water coming from?" Rodriguez pointed a flashlight at the seam in the ceiling. "It's sweating. The metal is sweating." I looked closer. It wasn't normal condensation. The liquid wasn't clear. It was thick, slightly viscous, and it had a faint iridescent sheen like oil. Thorne reached out with a gloved hand and touched the puddle. He rubbed the liquid between his fingers. "It's not water," Thorne whispered. "It's a solvent." "A solvent?" I asked. "It's dissolving the seals," Thorne said, standing up. His face was pale. Chemical permeation. They aren't trying to break the door down, Elias. They are digesting it. Suddenly, a drop of the liquid fell from the ceiling and landed on the exposed skin of Rodriguez's neck. She didn't scream, not at first. She just froze. Her eyes went wide, pupils dilating until her eyes were almost entirely black. "Rodriguez?" I stepped forward. She turned to look at me. A smile slowly spread across her face. It was a wrong smile, too wide, too rigid. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. Her voice was smooth, devoid of her usual gravelly tone. "Hear what?" "The harmony," she said. "It's so beautiful inside the rock." Then she collapsed. Pandemonium broke out. The medics were called. 2 crew members dragged her seizing body away towards the infirmary. I stood there, looking at the puddle of oily liquid. It was expanding, and for a second, I swore the liquid moved on its own, pulling itself back together like mercury.
Captain Vance ordered a lockdown of Deck C. Anyone who had been in the corridor was quarantined in the mess hall. That included me, Dr. Thorne, and 3 engineers. We sat at the tables, the doors locked from the outside. Thorne was pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. "It's a biological agent," he said, "or a nanotechnological one. It bypasses the blood-brain barrier." Rodriguez asked if I could hear the harmony, I said, leaning against the cold wall. Henderson, the guy I replaced, told me not to listen to the static. Thorne stopped pacing. He looked at me. "The rock wall," he said. "Station Orion isn't just listening to the ocean, Elias. The station is the amplifier, the antenna." He pulled a crumpled schematic from his pocket. "I stole this from the lab," he admitted. "Look at the foundation struts." I looked. The schematic showed the station anchored into the canyon wall, but the anchors went deep, too deep. "They aren't anchors," Thorne whispered. "They are probes. We are drilling into something that has been sleeping for millions of years, and now we woke it up." Just then, the lights in the mess hall flickered, once, twice, then they went out completely. The emergency red lights did not come on. We were in total, suffocating darkness. And in the dark, from the ventilation shaft above us, I heard a sound. It was the sound of wet, heavy movement, slithering through the metal ducts. Something was inside the ship. "Stay quiet," I hissed. We huddled together in the blackness. The air grew cold fast. The life support systems must have been failing. The sound in the vents stopped right above our heads. Scrape, scrape. Then a voice came down from the vent, but it wasn't a human voice. It was a mimicry. It sounded like Rodriguez, but choppy, like a corrupted audio file. "Open the door, Elias." My blood ran cold. It knew my name. "The water is warm." Beside me, one of the young engineers began to sob quietly. "Don't listen," I whispered, grabbing his shoulder. "It's not her." "We have your eyes now," the voice giggled, a wet, gurgling giggle. Then a drop of the viscous liquid fell through the vent grate and landed on the table between us. It glowed in the dark, a soft bioluminescent blue, and by its light, we saw that the vent grate was being unscrewed from the inside. The vent grate hit the floor with a metallic clang that sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. I didn't wait to see what squeezed out of the hole. "Move," I whispered. "Now." I grabbed a heavy steel chair and smashed it against the electronic lock of the mess hall door. Sparks showered down, illuminating the room in brief, strobe-like flashes. In those flashes, I saw it. Just a glimpse. Long, translucent limbs unfolding from the ceiling vent, too many joints, like a spider made of deep-sea jelly, but rigid. I hit the lock again and again.
With a groan of dying hydraulics, the door slid open just a few inches. "Squeeze through," I ordered. The young engineer went first, then Dr. Thorne. I was last. As I pushed my body through the gap, I felt a drop of that cold, oily liquid land on the back of my neck. It burned like acid. I tumbled into the corridor and kicked the door. It didn't close, but it jammed enough to hold whatever that was inside. We stood in the corridor, panting. The air was freezing now. We could see our breath misting in the beam of the single flashlight Thorne had managed to grab. "Where do we go?" the engineer whimpered. "The command center," I said. "We need to trigger the ballast release, blow the tanks and surface the station. It's the only way." We moved through the hallways of Deck C towards the central elevator, but the station was changing. The walls were no longer smooth gray steel. They were covered in a thin layer of slime. It looked like algae, but it was gray and pulsed slowly, mimicking a heartbeat. The smell was overwhelming, rotting kelp and copper. "It's terraforming," Thorne whispered, running his light over the walls. "It's rewriting the environment to suit itself." We passed the crew quarters. The doors were all open. Inside, the beds were empty, but the sheets were soaked in water. "Where is everyone?" the engineer asked. "Must have evacuated to the upper decks," I lied. I knew they hadn't. There were no alarms, no announcements. We reached the elevator shaft. I pried the doors open. The elevator car was gone. The shaft was just a dark vertical tunnel going up and down. And from the bottom of the shaft, deep in the bilge of the station, came a sound. It sounded like chanting, a low, rhythmic droning of human voices, all speaking in unison. "Make us whole. Make us whole." I looked at Thorne. He looked back at me, his eyes wide with a terrifying realization. "That's the engineering crew," he said. "They're all down there." "We can't go down," I said. "We have to climb up to the command deck." There was a maintenance ladder inside the shaft, cold, slick with condensation and oil. We began the climb, rung by rung. The physical exertion was a distraction from the fear. My muscles burned. The cold metal bit into my hands. Below us, the chanting grew louder. It wasn't just voices anymore. It was accompanied by the sound of wet tearing, like meat being pulled from bone. I didn't look down. I focused on the boots of the engineer above me. "Keep moving," I hissed. "Don't stop." We climbed past Deck B, the labs. Through the gap in the doors, I saw flickering blue lights. We climbed past Deck A, the officers' quarters. Finally, we reached the hatch for the command deck. I reached up and spun the wheel. It was stuck. "Help me!" Thorne braced himself on the ladder and pushed against my feet, giving me leverage. I groaned, putting every ounce of strength I had into turning that wheel. Screech! The metal gave way. I pushed the hatch open and climbed out onto the floor of the command center. I pulled the others up and slammed the hatch shut, spinning the lock. We lay on the floor, gasping for air. "We made it," the engineer sobbed. "We're safe." I stood up and shone the flashlight around the command center. It was empty, but it wasn't silent.
The command center was the brain of Station Orion, rows of consoles, the periscope station, the communication array, and the main viewport, a massive panoramic window looking out into the ocean. Outside, the 5 alien discs were still there. They were glowing brightly now, bathing the room in a sickly, pulsating light. "Where's the captain?" Thorne asked. I swept the flashlight beam across the room. Then I saw him. Captain Vance was sitting in his command chair, facing the window. He was perfectly still. "Captain?" I called out. He didn't move. I walked around the console to face him. Vance was dead. But he hadn't been attacked. He was connected. Thick black cables from the communication console had been shoved into his mouth, down his throat. Smaller wires were pierced into his temples. His eyes were open, staring at the alien ships outside. And on the screen next to him, text was scrolling rapidly. It wasn't code, it was English. Waiting for input. Upload complete. Human vessel accepted. He didn't call for help, I whispered, realizing the betrayal. He was negotiating. Thorne rushed to the ballast controls. "The systems are locked out," he yelled. "Vance locked everything before he did this." "Can we override it?" "Not digitally. The code is rewritten. It's alien syntax now." Thorne looked at me. "We have to do it manually. There's a manual release valve for the emergency ballast blow." "Where?" "Outside," Thorne said. "On the hull. EVA." I looked at the thick glass. Outside, the pressure was 4,000 pounds per square inch, and those things were watching. "There are deep-sea suits in the airlock," I said. "The heavy ADS suits, atmospheric diving systems. They're like walking tanks." "You can't go out there, Elias," Thorne said. "Those things will tear you apart." I looked at the captain's corpse, then at the scrolling text. "Harvest imminent." "If we stay here, we become part of the station," I said. "I'd rather die in the water." I turned to the engineer. "You stay here. Try to jam the signal. Thorne, you're coming with me to the airlock. I need you to prep the suit." I walked toward the airlock door. It was time to go back into the dark.
The ADS suit, atmospheric diving system, is not like a wetsuit. You don't wear it, you pilot it. It stands 7 feet tall, a hardened exoskeleton of aluminum and ceramic, built to withstand the crushing weight of the deep. It looks like a tank shaped like a man. Thorne helped me into it. The process was mechanical, cold. First, my legs into the rigid greaves, then strapping my arms into the manipulators. Finally, the helmet. It's a dome of thick acrylic and steel. As Thorne lowered it over my head, the sounds of the station, the humming, the alarms, the distant chanting were cut off instantly. Click, hiss, seal. Now there was only the sound of my own breath. Inhale, exhale. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and rubber. Thorne tapped on the glass. He looked small, fragile. He gave me a thumbs up, his face grim. He hit the button to cycle the airlock. The inner door slid shut, sealing me alone in the small steel chamber. "Commencing flooding," the automated voice said in my ear. Water began to rush in from the floor vents, rising past my knees, my waist, my chest. It swirled around the faceplate. For a moment, instinct took over, and I wanted to hold my breath, but the suit held. The water covered me completely. The outer hatch groaned, then slowly opened into the infinite black. Stepping out onto the ocean floor at 4,000 feet is a spiritual experience. The darkness is absolute. It feels physical, like velvet pressing against your eyes. I turned on the suit's external lights. 2 beams of halogen cut through the particle-filled water. I was standing on the external walkway of Station Orion. The station looked different from out here. It looked sick. The metal was covered in that gray, pulsing slime I had seen inside. It looked like the station was breathing. I activated the magnetic boots. Clang, step, clang, step. Movement in an ADS suit is slow. You're fighting the water with every inch. It's like walking in a dream where your legs don't work properly. I had to walk 50 yards along the hull to reach the manual ballast valves. 50 yards, it might as well have been 50 miles. To my left, the sheer cliff of the underwater canyon rose up into darkness. To my right, the void and the visitors. I tried not to look at them, but I couldn't help it. The 5 disc-shaped craft were hovering in a perfect semicircle around the station. They were huge, maybe 100 feet across each. They weren't metallic anymore. Up close, they looked like bioluminescent coral, shifting colors, indigo, deep purple, ultraviolet. They were silent, but I could feel them. A low vibration rattled my teeth inside the helmet. It wasn't sound, it was resonance. As I walked, one of the ships drifted closer, smoothly, without inertia. It stopped just 20 feet from the walkway. A giant, unblinking eye opened on the side of the hull. It wasn't an eye made of flesh. It was a lens of swirling light. It focused on me. A voice exploded inside my head, not through the radio,
Inside my brain, Elias. It wasn't a word, it was a concept, a feeling of recognition. I stumbled, falling to one knee. The magnetic boot held me to the hull. Return to the hive. "Get out of my head!" I screamed inside the helmet. My voice echoed, tinny and panicked. I forced myself to stand up. Clang, one step. Clang, another step. I wasn't fighting the water anymore. I was fighting their will.
I reached the maintenance panel. It was covered in barnacles and that strange gray slime. My manipulators were clumsy. I had to scrape the slime away to find the wheel. The wheel was rusted shut. Come on. I gritted my teeth. I engaged the suit's hydraulic servos. The motors whined in my ears. Whirr. The metal groaned. The alien presence in my head grew louder, a shriek of psychic static. Stop. Do not sever the connection. We are not part of you, I yelled. With a screech of tearing metal, the valve turned. Once, twice, 3 times. A massive plume of bubbles erupted from the side of the station as the compressed air blasted into the ballast tanks. The water around me turned into a chaotic white foam. The station shuddered. It groaned like a dying beast. It was lighter now. It wanted to rise, but it didn't move. I looked down at the anchors. The ones Thorne said were probes. They weren't just drilling into the rock. The rock had grown around them. The station was fused to the canyon floor. We weren't just docked, we were rooted. The station was pulling upward, fighting against the anchors. The metal of the hull was screaming, twisting. We were going to tear apart. "Thorne!" I yelled into the comms. "It's stuck! The anchors are fused!" Static. Then Thorne's voice, weak and distorted. "Use the explosive bolts, Elias. The emergency jettison at the base of the struts." I looked down into the darkness below the walkway. The struts were 50 feet down. I didn't have 50 feet of air hose, but the ADS suit had internal scrubbers. I could detach the umbilical. If I did that, I would be untethered. If I slipped, I would fall into the trench forever. The voice in my head changed. It wasn't commanding anymore. It was mocking. "You are small. The ocean is endless." "Yeah," I whispered, reaching for the release lever of my tether. Click. The cable fell away. I was free, floating in the void. I engaged the suit's thrusters and descended toward the anchors, toward the roots of the world. I reached the base of the primary anchor strut. Up close, the situation was worse than Thorne had predicted. The steel pillar wasn't just stuck in the rock had infected it. Thick, gray veins of that organic stone pulsed rhythmically, wrapping around the metal leg of the station like ivy. It looked like the ocean floor was trying to digest Station Orion. Or maybe it was feeding it. I watched the veins throb. Something was being pumped up from the depths into the station. I felt sick. We weren't a research facility. We were a mosquito sucking blood from an ancient giant. I positioned my ADS suit near the explosive bolts. They were covered in the gray slime. I raised my manipulator arm. The hydraulic claw opened with a mechanical hiss. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the ocean. I clamped the claw onto the slime and pulled. It didn't tear like moss. It tore like muscle. Fibrous strings snapped, leaking that glowing blue fluid. The water around me clouded with it. The moment I exposed the control panel, the voice in my head changed pitch. It wasn't commanding anymore. It was screaming. Pain, pain, pain. The psychic scream was so loud I could barely see. Static filled my vision. My nose started to bleed inside the helmet. "Get out of my head," I gritted out. I punched the code into the keypad with the clumsy robotic fingers. Alpha, 7, Zulu, destruct. The lights on the bolts turned from red to amber. Armed.
The 5 alien ships above me stopped circling. They all turned inward, facing the station. They knew what I was doing. The water around the station began to boil, not from heat, but from sound. They were charging their weapons or their voices. "Thorn!" I yelled. "Brace for impact!" I grabbed the emergency handle on the side of the strut with my left claw and hit the detonator with my right. There was no sound of an explosion. Physics is different at this depth. There was just a shock wave, a bubble of pure force expanded from the base of the struts. It hit me like a physical hammer, slamming my suit against the rock wall. If I hadn't been in the ADS suit, I would have been jelly. Through the swirling silt and debris, I saw it happen. The bolts sheared, the vanes snapped, the connection was broken. For a second, the station hung there, suspended in the dark. Then the laws of buoyancy took over. With a groan that sounded like the earth splitting open, Station Orion began to rise. It shot upward, trailing broken cables and leaking pipes. I fired my thrusters, maximum burn. I wasn't going to be left behind in the dark with them. I aimed for the maintenance ladder on the trailing edge of the rising station. "Catch me," I whispered.
My claw snagged the bottom rung of the ladder. The metal groaned under the weight of the suit, but it held. I was dangling below the station as it rocketed toward the surface. We were ascending too fast. The water rushed past me, a blur of bubbles and darkness. The pressure gauge on my HUD began to drop rapidly. 4,000 feet, 3,500 feet, 3,000 feet. I looked down one last time. The alien ships didn't follow. They stayed by the wound in the canyon wall. They were gathering around the blue liquid leaking from the broken roots. They weren't interested in us anymore. They were interested in healing the breach. We were insignificant. We were just pests they had swatted away. The darkness began to fade. The water turned from black to indigo, then to deep blue. We were breaking the twilight zone. 100 feet, 50 feet. The station breached the surface with the force of a breaching whale. Crash! We flew into the air, water cascading off the hull before slamming back down into the Pacific waves. Sunlight, actual, real sunlight blinded me. It was dawn. The sky was gray, but to me, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The station bobbed in the rough swell, rolling heavily. I climbed up the ladder, fighting gravity that felt suddenly too heavy. I reached the airlock platform and collapsed. I popped the seal on my helmet. Fresh air, salty, cold, glorious air. I took a deep breath, but as I looked at the hull of the station in the daylight, my relief died. The gray slime, the infection, it hadn't died in the sunlight. It was glistening, and it was spreading. Station Orion hadn't just escaped. It had brought something up with it.
We drifted for hours. The Pacific Ocean is vast, terrifyingly vast. Without propulsion, Station Orion was just a piece of debris bobbing in the swell. I sat on the external gantry with Thorn and the young engineer, whose name I finally learned was Miller. We were shivering, wrapped in emergency foil blankets found in the airlock survival kit. The sun was up, but it brought no warmth. A thick, cold fog had rolled in, hiding the horizon. The world was just gray water and gray sky. But the station was changing colors. I watched as the gray slime on the hull began to react to the oxygen. It wasn't drying out, it was blooming. It turned a vibrant, iridescent purple. Tiny spores began to float off it, drifting into the air like pollen. "Don't breathe it in," Thorn rasped, pulling his blanket over his nose. "It likes the nitrogen. It likes the atmosphere." I looked at the water around us. A slick of oil and biological matter was spreading from the station, calming the waves. We weren't just a shipwreck. We were a petri dish. "We need to call for extraction," Miller said, his teeth chattering. The comms array is inside, I said, in the command center. With the captain, Thorne added darkly. I stood up. My legs felt heavy, unaccustomed to the rolling motion of the surface. I'll go, I said. You two stay here. Keep the hatch sealed behind me. I re-entered the station. The air inside was thick, humid. It smelled like a greenhouse, heavy with the scent of wet earth and copper. The emergency lights were dead. The only light came from the daylight filtering through the thick viewports, casting long, pale shadows. I walked to the communications console. Captain Vance was still there, still connected, but the cables weren't just wires anymore. They had fused with his flesh. He looked like he was melting into the chair. I reached past him, trying not to touch the organic webbing, and grabbed the radio handset. Static. Mayday! Mayday! This is Station Orion. We have surfaced, requesting immediate assistance. Silence. Then a voice cut through the static. It wasn't the Coast Guard. It wasn't the Navy. It was a synthesized, automated loop. Containment Protocol 7 initiated. Quarantine zone established. Do not attempt to leave the vessel. Lethal force is authorized. I dropped the handset. They knew. They had always known. I couldn't go back out and tell them we were targets. Not yet. I needed to know the extent of the infection. I walked down the corridor toward the central shaft. The breathing of the walls was louder here. I looked down into the elevator shaft, where we had climbed up. The sunlight from the upper hatch illuminated the bottom of the shaft. The engineering crew, they weren't gone. They were clustered together at the bottom, fused into a single mass. It looked like a coral reef made of uniforms and limbs. But they weren't dead. I saw a chest rise and fall. I saw a hand twitch. They were hibernating or incubating. And in the center of the mass, something was glowing, a soft, rhythmic blue light. Thorne was right. We didn't escape. We just moved the hive to a new location. And now, with the warmth of the sun, they were waking up.
I heard a sound behind me, wet footsteps on the metal grating. I spun around, raising my flashlight like a club. It was Miller. He had followed me inside. "I told you to stay out," I hissed. Miller didn't answer. He was staring at the walls. His eyes were wide, dilated, just like Rodriguez's had been. He reached out and touched a patch of the purple bloom on the wall. "It's warm," he whispered. "Elias, it's so warm." "Don't touch it, Miller!" He looked at me. A single tear rolled down his cheek. "I can hear them again," he said. "They aren't angry anymore. They are happy. We brought them to the light." He looked at his hand. The purple spores were absorbing into his skin. "Miller, no!" He smiled. "It doesn't hurt, Chief. It feels like coming home." He turned and started walking toward the elevator shaft, toward the nest. "Miller!" I lunged for him, but he was fast, superhumanly fast. He vaulted over the railing and dropped into the darkness. I didn't hear a scream. I heard a splash, and then a welcoming murmur from the things below. I ran back to the airlock. I scrambled out onto the gantry, gasping for fresh air. Thorne was there, staring at the horizon. "Where is Miller?" he asked, not looking at me. "He's gone," I said. "He joined them." Thorne nodded slowly, as if he expected it. "Look," he pointed. I looked out at the fog. Something was breaking through the mist. Shapes, gray, angular shapes. Warships, 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and above them the thumping rhythm of Black Hawk helicopters. "Rescue?" I asked, though I knew the answer. Thorne turned to me. He was holding a small rock sample he had kept in his pocket. "No," Thorne said. "Sanitization." The lead destroyer flashed a signal lamp.
Prepare to be boarded. Resistance is futile. I looked at the purple bloom spreading across our hull. I looked at the warships. They aren't here to save us, Thorne, I said. They are here to sink us.
The sound of a Black Hawk helicopter at close range is something you feel in your chest, a rhythmic thumping that vibrates your very bones. Thump, thump, thump. The wind from the rotors tore at the fog, ripping it into shreds. It whipped the ocean spray into a frenzy. Thorne and I stayed on the gantry, hands raised. We had no weapons. We had no fight left. Ropes dropped from the belly of the lead chopper, thick black snakes coiling onto the deck. Then came the men. They weren't regular Navy. They wore unmarked black tactical gear, but over it they wore translucent yellow hazardous material suits, full face masks, rebreathers. They didn't look like rescuers. They looked like exterminators. They hit the deck with practiced precision, boots on metal. Thud, thud, thud. 6 of them, rifles raised. "Don't move," the lead soldier's voice boomed through an external speaker. "Get on your knees, hands behind your heads." I knelt on the wet grating. The spores from the station danced in the rotor wash, swirling around the soldiers like purple snow. They didn't ask us if we were okay. They didn't ask what happened. 2 soldiers zip-tied our hands, plastic biting into skin. The leader walked past us, towards the airlock. He was holding a device that clicked rapidly, a Geiger counter or a biological scanner. "Readings are off the charts," he said into his radio. "Biological contamination confirmed. Level 5 hazard." The radio crackled back. "Proceed with neutralization. Plant the charges on the main structural pillars. Sink it deep." Thorne struggled against his restraints. "You can't go in there," he yelled. "It's alive. The whole station is alive." The soldier turned to him. The face behind the glass mask was expressionless. "That's why we're here, Doctor," he said. He signaled his team. "Breach and clear. Watch your fire. Don't let anything touch your suits." 4 soldiers moved into the airlock, into the dark. I watched the heavy door close behind them. I wanted to warn them, but I knew they wouldn't listen. For a minute there was silence, just the wind and the idling choppers. Then the gunfire started. Pop, pop, pop. Muffled sounds from deep within the station, the sharp crack of carbines. Then a different sound. The station itself shrieked. It wasn't a metallic sound. It was the sound of air rushing through giant organic pipes, a low, resonant moan that vibrated the deck plates under my knees. The purple bloom on the hull suddenly flared red bright. The soldier guarding us stumbled back, looking at his feet. The metal deck was rippling. "Command, we have movement," he yelled. "The structure is shifting." Over the radio, screams erupted. "It's in the walls! It's coming out of the walls! Open fire! Static. Then a wet, crunching sound, like dry leaves being crushed in a fist. The airlock door hissed. We expected the soldiers to come running out, but the door didn't open. It bulged. Something massive was pushing against it from the inside.
The soldier guarding us panicked. He raised his rifle, aiming at the bulging door. "Fall back!" he screamed into his comms, but the station wasn't letting anyone leave. Suddenly, the ventilation grates on the exterior deck, right where the soldier was standing, burst open. Tentacles of thick, gray matter shot out. They moved with terrifying speed. They wrapped around the soldier's legs. He didn't even have time to scream. He was yanked down, smashing against the grating, and pulled into the ventilation shaft. His rifle skittered across the deck, stopping at my knees. The helicopter pilot saw it. The Black Hawk banked sharply, trying to pull away, but the station had defenses we hadn't seen. A pressurized stream of that blue, viscous liquid shot up from a broken pipe, hitting the helicopter's tail rotor. The liquid solidified instantly on contact, jamming the gears. The chopper spun wildly. Whump, whump, whump. Crash! It hit the water 50 yards away, disappearing into the gray swell. Silence returned, but now we were alone. Thorn and I sat on the empty deck. The wind howled. The red glow of the station faded back to a pulsing purple. The station had killed the threats, the soldiers, the helicopter, but it hadn't touched us. I looked at the zip ties on my wrists. I looked at the rifle lying near me. I shuffled over, grabbed the rifle with my bound hands, and awkwardly used the blade of the bayonet to cut the plastic. I freed Thorn. We stood up, rubbing our wrists. "Why didn't it take us?" Thorn whispered. He was shaking. I looked at the airlock door. The bulging had stopped. "Because we aren't trying to kill it," I said. "We are the carriers. You don't kill the carrier." I walked to the railing and looked down at the water. More ships were coming on the radar. Jets were screaming overhead. "They will bomb us," I said. "They won't send men again. They will send missiles." Thorn looked at the open hatch of the airlock. It had unlocked itself. "We have to go back inside," Thorn said. "Inside? Are you crazy?" "It's the only place safe from the airstrike," he said. "The station, it will protect us if we let it."
The airlock hissed shut behind us, sealing out the sound of the approaching fighter jets. Instantly, the roar of the wind vanished, replaced by a sound that I can only describe as a heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. It was slow, massive. It resonated through the floor plates, up through the soles of my boots, calming my own racing heart. The air inside was no longer stale. It was thick, rich with oxygen, smelling of ozone and crushed flowers. Thorn lowered his flashlight. We didn't need it. The walls were glowing. The purple bloom had fully taken over the interior. The sharp metal angles of the corridors were gone, smoothed over by layers of translucent, bioluminescent tissue. It was like walking inside the throat of a giant, benevolent whale. "Do you feel that?" Thorn whispered. He wasn't shaking anymore. "The heat? No," he said. "The silence. My head. The headache is gone." The psychic screaming had stopped. The entity wasn't shouting at us anymore. It was holding us. We walked deeper into the ship. We didn't know where we were going, but we knew the way. We passed the mess hall. The tables and chairs were gone, absorbed into the floor. In the center of the room, a pool of that blue liquid had formed. It was perfectly still. Thorn stopped. He reached out and touched the wall. Small filaments, like tiny hairs of light, reached out from the wall and wrapped around his fingers. He didn't pull away. "It's rewriting the station," Thorn whispered. "It's not destroying it, Elias. It's optimizing it. Metal is brittle. Flesh is adaptable." I looked at the structural beams. They had thickened, turning into something that looked like bone. We were safe here. The walls were thick. The armor was alive. For the first time in days, I felt sleepy. A heavy, narcotic drowsiness washed over me. "We should keep moving," I said, my voice sounding far away. "To the bridge." We entered the command center. It was unrecognizable. The computers, the radar screens, the tactical maps, they were all covered in the growth. Captain Vance was still in the center, but he was no longer a corpse in a chair. He was the heart of the room. The organic matter had built a cocoon around him, leaving only his face exposed. His eyes were closed. He looked peaceful. And then he spoke. His lips didn't move. The voice came from the walls, from the floor, from the air itself. "They are coming, Elias." I stepped forward. "The Navy?" "The breakers, the ones who fear the change." "Are you Vance?" I asked. The eyes opened. They were solid purple, like the ocean deep. "I am Vance. I am Miller. I am Rodriguez. We are the vessel." He, or it, didn't sound malevolent. It sounded ancient, sad. "We did not come to invade. We came to hide. The ocean was our cradle.
You woke us up."
Suddenly, the world turned white. Boom! The first missile hit the station. The entire structure lurched violently. I was thrown to the soft floor, but the walls didn't crack. They flexed. I watched as the ceiling above us rippled like skin absorbing a punch. The impact was distributed instantly across the entire organism. Boom! Another hit, closer to the bridge. Thorne fell beside me. He was laughing softly. "They can't sink us," he said. "You can't sink water." The captain's voice filled the room again. "Hold on." The viewports, which were now covered in a translucent membrane, showed the outside world. Flashes of orange explosions, the water boiling. But inside, the heartbeat just got faster, stronger. Thump, 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 thump. The station wasn't just taking the hits, it was feeding on the energy. The kinetic force was being absorbed. We weren't a target anymore. We were a fortress. The bombing continued for 10 minutes. Then, silence. They had run out of munitions, or they realized it wasn't working. The station was still afloat, scarred maybe, but whole. The captain's eyes focused on me. "We cannot stay here. The surface is too cold. The mines here are too loud." "Where will we go?" I asked. "Home," the voice said. "Deep." I felt the station shift. The buoyancy changed. We weren't sinking, we were diving. The water rushed over the viewports, washing away the smoke and fire. The light of the sun faded. Blue, indigo, black. We were going back down, not to the canyon this time, deeper, to the places where maps don't exist. I looked at Thorne. He lay on the floor, curled up, eyes closed, listening to the heartbeat of the ship. I sat down beside him. I closed my eyes too. I didn't want to fight anymore. I just wanted to sleep.
We passed the 20,000-foot mark hours ago, or maybe days ago. I don't look at my watch anymore. I don't think it works. Time behaves differently here. The crushing pressure outside should have turned Station Orion into a ball of scrap metal, but the walls hold. The living metal breathes, adjusting, growing thicker, expanding against the weight of the ocean. Thorne is asleep. He hasn't moved in a long time. The purple filaments have wrapped around him gently, like a blanket woven from light. He looks happy. I sit in the captain's chair. I am the only one awake. The sonar screens are gone now, replaced by a single transparent membrane that lets me see out into the void. It isn't dark anymore. The deeper we go, the brighter it gets. The water is filled with particles of light, snow that glows. We are falling through a sky of stars, but underwater. It is quiet, so incredibly quiet. And then the bottom comes into view. It is not mud, it is not rock, it is a landscape of spires, hundreds, thousands of them, crystalline towers rising from the abyss, glowing with that same soft amber light we saw on the very first day. They stretch as far as the eye can see, a metropolis that has been here since the oceans were formed. There are other vessels here too, not just Station Orion. I see old wooden galleons encased in amber. I see submarines from the Second World War, their hulls turned into coral gardens. I see airplanes. Nothing is broken here. Everything is preserved. We are not crashing. We are docking. Station Orion slows down, guided by an invisible hand. We glide silently toward a massive central spire. This is the archive. This is where we belong. I look at my hands. They are translucent now. I can see the veins glowing with blue fluid. I don't feel hunger.
I don't feel thirst. I don't feel the ache in my old joints. The fear I felt, the panic of the monkey brain, is gone. It has been washed away. I realize now what the infection was. It wasn't a disease. It was an upgrade. We couldn't survive down here as humans. Our bodies were too weak. So they changed us. They adapted us. I stand up and walk to the membrane. I place my hand against it. The glass dissolves. The water touches my skin, but it isn't cold. It feels like silk. I step out. I don't need a suit. I don't need a tank. I take a breath. I breathe the water. It tastes like life.
I swim. It's effortless, like flying in a dream. I join the others. Miller is there. Rodriguez, the captain. We don't speak with words. We speak in thoughts. A chorus of minds connected in the deep. Welcome home, Elias. They show me my station. It is a spire of pure quartz. My job is still the same. I am a listener, but I don't listen for submarines anymore. I listen to the heartbeat of the planet. I listen to the tectonic plates shifting. I listen to the whales dreaming. I am the guardian of the quiet. We watch the surface world, your world, with pity. You are so loud up there, so chaotic, so afraid of the dark. Down here, the dark is warm. The dark is safe. So that is my story. That is why I never returned. That is why there is no record of Master Chief Elias or Station Orion. They listed us as lost at sea, but we are not lost. We are found. I am sending this message up to you, through the currents, through the vibrations of the water, into your dreams. If you are listening to this, do not be afraid of the deep water. Do not be afraid of the silence. Close your eyes. Imagine the weight of the ocean covering you like a heavy blanket, protecting you, blocking out the noise, blocking out the light. Just drift, sink down to us. The water is warm, the lights are beautiful, and we are waiting. Sleep now, sleep, sleep.